Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host, Grenadier One. As always, I hope you are having a good week. Hope you all had a good Independence Day. I know that may be a sour subject for you. It is for me because while I enjoy having a day off from work and spending time with the family, I don't exactly feel like we're very free and independent. So does not seem to be a lot to celebrate there. In fact, I have no doubt that if we were to bring the founders here to the future, maybe through the wormhole that they're trying to open at CERN, I have no doubt that they would begin organizing for a revolution within about 15 minutes of arrival. Which anyway, kind of leads me into this week's topic, which is organizing for revolution. I could spend another show going over kind of the recent topical events, but I think you guys are already up to speed on those things, sometimes, and it's not necessary for me to comment on every little thing that goes on. And there's nothing I would exactly call major going on right now that we need to spend time doing analysis on or anything like that. So with that, I thought it would be a good time to go into some videos that spent some bandwidth going over practical things that you need to know and learn for the up and coming. Today we're going to begin with something that I think is critical to the efforts and the future of what is coming, and that is organization. This is something that I think that our side does a poor job of, and we tend to get in our own way and step on our third appendage and all of those other words and phrases you want to use to describe it. But the time is now, if you are unaware. It's here. You need to do this now ASAP and get moving on it as soon as you finish listening to this show. You need to get to work. If you haven't already been working on this, it is critical. It is absolutely critical that you should be doing this. What I'm going to be talking about is the command staff or the battle staff. I follow Dr. Christopher Larson, who is the head of One Shepherd. You guys may recall that that's the training outfit that I went to a few weeks back. Did the event out in Missouri. Fantastic organization. Well, Dr. Larson has his own YouTube channel, and I urge you to go over and not only follow it, but go back and watch as many of his videos as you can. He does a really fantastic job of presenting concepts and information in a very clear and concise manner. The guy knows how to teach things. Let's just put it that way. So go over there and watch his stuff. Anyway, here in the last week or so, he put out a video on this very topic, and it kind of inspired me to go back and look at some of the things that I've written or talked about before on this. And I wanted to bring that back to the front burner for everyone because, as I said, I think this is critical. Now, Dr. Larson explains in his video that the battle staff is really something that is situated at a level of organization in the Army, at least, that is the battalion level, or 400 to 500 people. There would not be a full battle staff below that in the lower levels of organization. He explains, at the company level or platoon level, those tasks would be much smaller and concentrated, and just in your command team would be kind of taking care of some of those, and the primary work would be done at that higher level staff organization. And he then goes on to explain the roles and functions of the staff and go over, each one of them in pretty good detail. So go over and watch that video so you understand what those are. Even though I'll go over some of them a little bit later to kind of give you a little highlight of it. I think it's good to hear the context and the sort of military focus that what he's talking about there. Now, when you hear that we're talking about 400 or 500 men, you should be asking yourself, well, wait a minute, I don't have anywhere near that number of people. How does this apply to me? Well, that's a good question, because this is where I would have to kind of deviate from that military context, and point you to another idea and concept that I think fills our needs, somewhat better than that military S system. It's just how they refer to it. That's their term for the battalion level, is the S system, and it gives each section a number. For example, personnel is the S1 function, and so forth. And while I think there's a good reason, to not reinvent the wheel and to follow a military model where we can, I think a more simplified version of this is better suited to our needs, and we find that in the incident command system. And I've spoken on this before, so I'm not going to go into, really too much depth on that term or the history of it or where you can find it. I think I did a whole program on it, and I can't remember exactly which episode it was, but you can go back and find that. But anyway, the command post system that is used by emergency services all over the country, that's what ICS is, and it's designed to be implemented by a small group of people, and then grow and evolve as needed, as the incident expands and the response expands to it. And I would tell you to go look up that term, the ICS system, and download all of those training documents from the FEMA website on this. It's invaluable information, and it will help you. And I would also tell you to order a book. I got my copy off Amazon, but the book is from Lightning Press, and it's called The Battle Staff. It is BSS5 in the Smart Book series. And Dr. Larson had something to do with the material in that book, and this book is awesome. He has it all the time on his desk when he's doing some of these kind of videos, as well as a couple of other books that he's written. This book is fantastic. It takes a lot of information that is spread out over multiple manuals from the Army, and it condenses it into a single book. And you could go out and you can download those Army manuals for free. I mean, they're out there, the field manual, like the operation manual and training and all. There's several different ones, but it's you're sifting through all of that information. Each one of those books is hundreds of pages, and you're trying to sift through that information to kind of get the really critical pieces and the things that will be the most applicable. And this book is a heavy read. The Battle Staff book. It's not exactly a page turner, but it is just fantastic information. So I urge you to pick it up. Like I said, it does all that heavy lifting for you to get all of that information in one place. And even then, not all of the information in that particular book is probably going to be applicable to what we're doing or what we're planning for immediately, at the initial onset of it. But anyway, that's your background info and your reading material. So your study material. Go get those books. Go get that information, particularly the ICS training material, and begin kind of consuming that. Well, now what? Why am I telling you to do this? Well, if you're listening to this, then you're going to be a leader. You may not be the overall leader, but you are going to fill a role in a battle staff at some level. And you might as well learn your job now while you can, and things are still relatively normal, as normal as what qualifies for normal these days. And why do I think this way about this? Well, let me lay it out this way. We often hear complaints about how the right can't get organized and will not get out and train and so on and so forth. And mostly people, chalk that up to laziness or, fear of becoming a target for law enforcement or infiltration, getting arrested, getting entrapped into doing something stupid. All of that stuff, and those are legitimate reasons. I don't discount those. We've certainly seen that happen to people over the years. Uh, so it's absolutely true, and I think it's a hurdle that we have to overcome because there are plenty of people that just use that as an excuse to not do something. I came to the conclusion a long time ago that what really needed to be done was to focus on building leadership or building headquarters as opposed to trying to go ground up and build fire teams or action teams or whatever. Kind of do things a little bit differently. Headquarters functions and training can be across a lot of disciplines and applicable situations. For example, natural disasters and emergencies offer some very good training scenarios. And, these protests that have been going on all over the country, those are good training opportunities for people who are not near the event. You can, and I have done this, use those things to train for future events in multiple aspects of the headquarters staff. Logistics, intel, operations, planning, all part of these events, and you could run real time simulation in conjunction with these things going on in the real world to cover those various aspects. So not only is it an informative and educational experience, it can be very rewarding if you are supporting some real world element as you're doing that. But the more important thing is it's perfectly legal to do that. You're not going to get in trouble for doing that, right? It may be somewhat difficult to get people excited or interested in that, but I think if you present things in the right way and you can contextualize things in the right way, you'll get people involved, and they'll learn that a lot of these things they can do from their desk. They don't have to go out in the field to do some of these things, and so it becomes easier for them to train and learn and educate themselves. Then they don't have any excuse for not doing it, basically. And I'm of the opinion that even though we are currently facing a great deal of discomfort in our lives, the inflation, the supply chain issues, the flat out shortages of products, as well as people, or shortages of people willing to actually work. All of that's going on, but we're still not uncomfortable enough to get the average so-called patriot off of the couch or out from behind his keyboard. So they might spend untold hours, researching UN vehicles reported to be on rail cars somewhere in the Midwest or whatever, but they don't want to get out on a range and, run react contact drills. Now, that's not good, but that's the environment that we're in right now. The time is quickly approaching, however, when it will be pretty much impossible to ignore that massive tidal wave of reality that's kind of building off of our coastline right now. Even the normies are starting to get the feeling that, this thing's going down and they might need to begin worrying about it. Now, that's a good thing, and I'm glad to see it because it's exactly what we need. But now I want you to imagine the very near future when that really begins to happen, and how among your current circle of people, your current circle of friends and acquaintances, how's that going to play out? I think it's going to kind of go down like this. These people that you've been warning for years are going to finally begin to take things seriously, and they're going to look to you for leadership. Because naturally you will lead them because you saw this thing coming a long time ago, and that obviously means that you know what you're talking about, right? That's how they're going to see things. Then they're going to ask you about prepping and shooting and radios and all that basic stuff that you don't even find interesting anymore because you did that stuff 10 years ago. That's just a thing that you've got, already programmed in and as part of your day-to-day existence or what have you, and you don't even find that stuff interesting anymore. But they're going to ask you about it. And then they'll start to think about training and, going out into the woods and the other things that come along in this natural sort of progression that we've all kind of walked down this path. And again, that's all good, and it's what you want. But imagine that you've got 20 to 30 people who come to you, because each one of those people that you know will have people that they know, and so on and so forth. So you could end up with a fairly good-sized group that suddenly coalesces around you because you're the guy that people know. And I have no doubt that this is going to replicate all over the place, and it's going to be the typical course of action for most people who are listening to this show. So the question is, what is your response going to be? What's your plan to deal with this? Do you think it's better to just brush them off and tell them to go pound sand because you told them so? Ha ha, I told you and you didn't listen, so screw you? Or do you think it's better to say, okay, good, you're ready, let's go to work? But then you have no real idea on how to best go about training them and getting them up to speed on everything. Isn't it far better to already have a small group of people in place to become their leadership and fill out those staff roles, fulfill all those functions that an organization needs? In other words, spend time building your leadership team now, because the grunts will be there when the time comes. And if you do this right, you can be very far down the path to a functioning organization very quickly. And then you'll just need to plug in those new people as they wake up to the reality of the situation. And not only will it be easier for you, it'll be easier for them as well, because they will see that you have a real infrastructure in place and you know what you're doing. They'll trust you more. They'll feel more loyalty and more confident in the membership of this organization that you're building. This group that's got their shit together, they're going to want to be part of that. They're going to feel much better about it if you're not trying to make it up as you go along. So how do you do this? Well, first off, you need to set your ego down and have a good talk with it. Explain that when it comes down to it, you may not be the best person to be the overall leader of a group of people. That's okay. For a lot of potential reasons, one of which being that you may not feel that you're capable of that. That's all good. Maybe actually you think that you would be a good leader. And that's good too. Just tell your ego that, the reality might prove otherwise. And you might run into situations that you don't know how to handle when things really begin to play out, You might be better suited to one of the staff roles or one of those other functions or positions. And those roles are just as important as being the 1 IC or the 2 IC. And what may happen is that you're in the overall leadership role until someone more qualified and more capable comes along. So just be ready and comfortable to step into some other role if that happens. And you need to have that conversation with yourself now. But you probably already have. But, go ahead and do that if you haven't. Just understand the way the situation may play out and may present itself or develop. Next, you need to fill some of those key positions in the staff before you worry about others. Now, ICS is designed, and that's the Incident Command System, if I didn't mention that already, but ICS is designed to begin at a very low level of operation or incident and then expand as needed. So in the initial phases, you may be wearing multiple hats for a little bit until you can put a person in that role. And that's why it's better suited for us, in my opinion. I think it's better, it functions better than the S system at this lower level. But what you can do is you can take the ICS functions and compare them to the S functions and kind of study both of them, where they overlap and where they diverge, to really learn what you're going to need out of those. And when you do that, you'll see that early on a couple of functions become very critical to operating. And in my opinion, you need the S2, or the planning and intel section, as the ICS system terms it, You need that first. It is the main critical area that will drive all the others because intel drives the fight. So get someone who can fill this role, and I would urge you to find someone separate from yourself to fill this position, and have it be someone who is level-headed and has a good critical head on their shoulders, so that they don't just believe everything that's out there, and it's separate from you because of its importance. I think this is one of those things that you don't need to wear this hat as well as the overall command. One I see the first guy in charge. I think these things need to be separate. You get someone who can fill this role, and they begin to create threat assessments and area studies for your area, and they begin to build an intelligence network across the full landscape of sources, all electronic sources, open source. Maybe they have some insider information from certain individuals. Everything from electronic to people. Just all across the whole landscape, as they would say. This will go very far to keep you informed and understanding of your local area as well as the greater situation that's going down. And the next function is the logistics section, or the S4 section. And this is another area that you need to have some specialization and some dedication to. In the ICS system, this area has overall responsibility not just for logistics or supply, but also for radio communications. The comm section falls under logistics. And that's something that you can decide if you want to replicate, or if you want to follow the S system, the military system. They spin that out into its own separate function. And the comms section runs the tactical operations center and so forth. You make that decision, however you want to do it. But regardless of how you decide to do it, logistics is still a critical function. This person will need to locate and track supplies that you're going to need, and source material and physical goods for you. And obviously that's very important. You would, be issuing out gear and keep getting it back in, tracking it, those kind of things. That's really critically important. And if you spin the comms section out on its own, then you would also count that as a critical function. So you could be looking at a third person that you would need to recruit fairly quickly. So you can really start this thing working with 3 people, and I think that's very much achievable for any of us, really. When you have those slots filled, you can look at the other areas and plug people into those. Even before you fill out the operations sections, however, you should look to put together a training plan and how you're going to spin up these new guys who are coming in. And this is a structured process that each person would need to follow to meet what you consider a basic level of capability. So go ahead and have that plan in place, plan it out, what a training event would look like, and write all that stuff down. Have it in a binder, in a folder, something that you could go to and say, okay, here's our basic warrior plan, or our basic trooper plan, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to do this and this and this and this. So we're going to have those skill sets and training concepts on paper in place that we're going to train everybody up to, a standard that we're going to get everybody up to. Locate and arrange a place that you can do that. And you don't have to set dates and times or anything. You just need to be ready for it when the time comes. And also, it's not a one-time thing, because you're probably going to have people coming in at different times in different sections or groups or what have you. And you need to be ready to schedule it multiple times within a short period of time, or on short notice. And you need several days of training with new people, just kind of to make sure they have a good idea of how to run the primary and not hurt themselves or other people on your team. So keep that in mind too. It's not something that you probably want to run as a one-day thing. You're going to want to put some time into it just to get to kind of a very, very, very tiny basic level. Now, that's a good starting point, but it's up to you to go do it. So go do it. Next week, we'll get into some of the other positions and their functions and how they integrate into the staff. But your homework is to have that training plan put together and ready to implement. So I will take questions in the comments section, and if I don't know the answer, I will talk to someone who does and get you an answer. But I'll be there and available to answer things. So anyway, that's all I got time for today. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.